Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a huge storm that's coming to much of the United States over the next 3 days. And this storm is going to bring some significant severe weather, anywhere from the central and southern plains all the way back through the Dixie Alley in the southeast. And this includes all modes of severe weather, including damaging winds, large to very large hail, and a few tornadoes. And I wouldn't even rule out an isolated strong tornado. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's hop right into what's happening right now across the United States today to give you an idea of what these storms will be doing over the next several days. And we'll begin with the central and southern plains, and this is essentially where our storm is located and where that very active weather pattern is going to originate. Right now we have a ton of convection stretching from areas in Texas back through even Missouri, lots of cloud cover stretching into the Midwest. In this storm in particular, it's still developing. What is interesting is that it's going to split up into two different parts, one of which is going to impact the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, primarily with some showers, maybe even a little bit of a mixture of rain and snow at times, but beyond that, really not much else. But down in the southern tier, that's where the more significant weather event's going to be happening, with severe weather, all modes of severe weather being possible. And again, we'll break that down for you in detail here in just a couple of minutes. And then back over on the West Coast, things are drying out. We've had a lot of activity there all winter long. It is drying out though for the time being. There are still some clouds in the vicinity, but overall really nothing too crazy. And then on the East Coast, that is where we have a lot of moisture beginning to move offshore. That's from the large storm that we've been dealing with for the last few days, and that is no longer going to be an impact after tonight. All right, let's talk more about that severe weather potential for the next few days, and we are going to begin with today, which is tossing trampolines on tall trees Thursday, which I can assure you there will be some flying trampolines due to the threat of all modes of severe weather. Beginning with today though, we do have two slight risks of severe weather, and this is a double barrel slight risk. What that means is that we're looking at a double barrel. We have a slight risk of severe weather in central Texas, back even closer to the DFW metroplex. There's also another slight risk of severe weather across parts of southern and southeast Kansas, back into much of central, western, and northern Oklahoma. Now, the main concern does vary a little bit with these two risks. We have more of a hail threat with the southern risk of severe weather, but both threats in particular will be producing some sort of level of large to even perhaps very large hail. Notice down here in this other slight risk, we do have that hatched area near Abilene, Texas, and just south of Abilene. This is where we're watching for the potential of hail greater than 2 inches in diameter. Though it's an isolated threat, you definitely want to make sure that you're protecting your vehicle tonight. And then further up to the north, we have another slight risk for hail, and that is where we're also watching for the potential of hail up to golf ball sized hail. So definitely make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts. The tornado risk has actually just been upgraded as I'm recording this forecast. There's now a 5% tornado risk across parts of central Texas, even back into parts of North Texas. There might be an isolated tornado or two in this area. There's a slightly higher likelihood of that now, with maybe a discrete supercell this afternoon. And then further up to the north, we have another area that we're watching for an isolated brief and weak tornado, anywhere from western Missouri all the way back into Oklahoma. And we will talk about the timing with that event in just a moment, but I do want to mention that we have another risk of severe weather going into Friday. This is on Flying Fences Friday. We do have a slight risk of severe weather from the DFW metroplex in North Texas all the way back into Florida. This also includes southeast Oklahoma, Arkansas, even into Mississippi and Alabama. Marginal threat of severe weather goes as far north and west as areas like Texas and as well as Missouri. The main concern as we go into tomorrow will actually be some damaging winds and large hail. The large hail threat will be primarily confined to this area here. So Texas back into northern Louisiana, much of Arkansas, and as well as southeast Oklahoma. And there's also a tornado risk. Now, at the time I'm recording this, the 5% tornado risk is very large, obviously. There is definitely a chance that when you're watching this video, there is a 10% hatched tornado risk somewhere in this area, whether that is in southeast Louisiana or even southern Mississippi. That is still to be determined by the Storm Prediction Center, but the confidence is growing that there will be some sort of significant tornado risk embedded in this area. So if this does end up happening, there's a chance that we are live tomorrow, so make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. But this tornado risk is a 5% probability across the board from Texas all the way back into the Florida Panhandle, so definitely make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place just in case there are any tornado warnings in your location tomorrow. Then once we go into suspicious storms Saturday, we do have a slight risk of severe weather from North Carolina back into the Florida Panhandle, and this is mainly for the damaging wind concern and maybe a little bit of large hail, and then also maybe an isolated tornado or two. Those are the main concerns going into Saturday. All right, let's break down the timing for you hour by hour. We're going to begin with the Southern Plains severe weather event, which is not really ongoing yet, but it will begin this afternoon. So closer to about 3 to 4 o'clock, really where I'm watching for the greatest severe weather threat during this afternoon will be the area I just circled. So back over near Abilene, that is where we're likely going to have at least 1, maybe 2 discrete cells fire off. And those are the ones that we need to watch for that increased tornado risk. In addition to this, those storms will also have the potential to produce large to very large hail. Once we get closer to about 5 to 6 o'clock, those storms are moving closer to DFW. Notice by 6 to 7, they're trying to get to the DFW Metroplex. The HRR model has a lot of showers and downpours out in front of those storms, and if those all stay in place, I do think the DFW area is going to struggle to see severe weather during the afternoon today, mainly due to the fact all this rain is going to stabilize the atmosphere. Another severe weather risk we need to watch for during the afternoon as well is further up here to the north. By 5 to 6 o'clock, storms will begin to fire up in Kansas, western and northern Oklahoma. By 6 to 7, maybe even 8 o'clock, those storms will be beginning to ramp up, and by 9 to 10 o'clock, those storms will continue to move to the east. Pretty slow moving storms, but all those storms will be primarily comprised of hail with maybe an isolated tornado risk. By 1 to 2 in the morning, you might think we're done with severe weather. Not necessarily. There's going to be another round of storms overnight tonight, closer to about 6 in the morning. Storms will move through the DFW area, primarily with damaging winds. There might also be some large hail, and eventually those storms will all move for the most part into areas like Louisiana and Mississippi, with a couple of storms left over during the afternoon on Friday. Those will also have the threat of producing some large hail, perhaps up to golf ball sized hail. Finally, North Texas will be done by then, but notice during the afternoon, this is right around 12 o'clock on Friday, storms will be firing up across Louisiana and Mississippi, and these ones that are coming right off the coast here, these are going to be the ones to watch for in particular for an increased and elevated tornado risk across areas in eastern Louisiana and southern Mississippi, which is honestly where I think there will be an increased tornado risk. Once we get closer to about 6, 7 o'clock, storms continue to move to the east. Main concern will be large hail and damaging winds, but again, a few tornadoes definitely in play. I do want to mention that the tornado risk is going to be a bit more elevated tomorrow. Where that exactly is still remains a little bit uncertain, but I do think we have an area that we need to watch for the closest for that tornado risk, which will be this area in particular in eastern Louisiana and southern Mississippi. This is where we have a lot of ingredients in place, including the dew points and as well as the shear and as well as the low-level jet. All of those kind of mix in here down in parts of eastern Louisiana and southern Mississippi. Tornado parameter values also kind of agree with that here. A lot of values between 1 and 2, which means that there's slightly an elevated risk there of tornadoes, which will be something to watch for across those areas during the afternoon and evening. So in terms of timing, storms will fire up again all during the afternoon and evening hours. It's going to be an active day. One of the biggest issues with the severe weather setup is all the rain and convection that'll be out in front of these storms. That'll limit the instability quite a bit because we're talking about a lot of energy being used up initially. But if these storms are able to get going, we're definitely going to have a chance for a few tornadoes. I do think there's a low floor and a high ceiling with this threat of severe weather when it comes to a tornado risk. What that essentially means is that we might have no tornadoes. We also could have several. It just depends on what exactly happens with this particular setup tomorrow morning. Once we go into the late evening, storms will continue across Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. And eventually, as we go into the late evening and overnight hours, a lot of this is just rain. And then we'll watch Saturday morning into the afternoon for another threat of severe weather across parts of Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you're not already.